Okay, then this logo from Canvas Graphics has got a pretty cool idea. It's, as you can see, it kind of the word canvas, but the V is like the nib of a pen, which is quite a cool idea. I just think there's a few refinements I would do to sort of develop this to a suitable and acceptable level. I just think there's a few changes that I would make to make it a little bit more readable and just generally clean up some of the rough edges. So overall the concept is cool. It's the pen as the V. It's the pen nib as the V, but then as you can see, it kind of looks a little bit like it says car because of this break here, and also the lines are all weird. I'm not sure if this has been taken and like live traced or something like that, but the lines are all weird, so I'm going to kind of build this one from scratch. So let's get into it. So the font used here has got some kind of like hard edges and some rounded edges. It's kind of like a very kind of like industrial looking font, maybe kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. I don't know, I'm not the best with sort of describing fonts, but it's just got this sort of like edgy style. I'm feeling like something like a font called Franchise might work, although it looks a little bit brutal, and my next plan is to use the pen nib inside like the negative space of the V, like in the triangle that is sort of cut out, and that font doesn't leave me with much room, so I'm going to have another little look through my font list. Let's have a quick look here. I don't want to completely whip away all of the sort of style that the designer has already given it, because that is something that I am prone to doing. I'll just use a simplified sans serif font, and then everyone will be mentioning it in the comments, oh, all you're doing is taking all the style out of it, just making it too plain, making it bland. So I don't want to do that. I want to make it interesting. Maybe there's one here called Euro style. Perhaps that could work. It's got that similar vibe where the C sort of like hooks over, the A's are sort of a similar shape, and the S is a sort of similar shape. Okay, I'm not going to waste any more time. This is what we're going to use. This is how we're going to do it. I like the little pen nib we have here, so I'm going to copy that and paste it in. Now currently the V has been completely replaced by that pen nib, which I think is a little bit hard to read. Like I said, it looks kind of like it says canas or car vas, or basically just looks a little bit difficult to read as the word canvas. So my plan is to use the pen nib inside the negative space of the V and make it a little more subtle. I mean, I think this icon must have been live traced as well, because none of the points are really lining up, so I feel like I'm going to have to redraw this in a much cleaner style. So let's just do it. Let's stop talking about it. Let's just do it. So snap to grid's definitely going on for this one. We're going to get this nice and neat and tidy. I'm just going to make that really low opacity and then lock it with Command and 2. And then basically I want this to be symmetrical, so I'm going to go all off of this sort of central rectangle that I'm making. This is quite cool. Instead of sort of counting the squares over to the left hand side and then counting them down, what you can do is just grab both of them points, press S for the scale tool, which you can see here, hold down shift and drag that, and it will jump both sides out at the same time. That's something that when people see me do in the time lapse of the normal Rebrand Everything videos each week, that is something that's often mentioned, like how are you doing that? So that's a good way of doing it. Right, I'm going to make the outside shape first, just by duplicating and fiddling basically until it looks right. Again, scale tool, bring that in. Kind of want. So that's the outside almost done. And then what I'm going to do is scale this up by 1.5. Let me explain a little bit better. Because I've got these two squares here, I actually need to run another square up the middle of that, and I want it to be quite equal, so I'm going to scale it up 1.5 times 1.5, so that that point is now 3, if I've worked this out correctly. If I've worked this out correctly, that point should be that line there should now be 3 squares wide, which it is, which means I can get an exact rectangle up the middle here. Which I probably could have just eyeballed, but I just like it to be mathematically perfect. I just find it makes a lot cleaner icons, but then at the same time sometimes it does sort of stem my creativity a little. So each to their own, I guess. And then in here I'm just going to put a circle. I think something like that should do it. We'll see how this looks when it's scaled down. But that, I think, is my icon. So now I'm going to Shift and M for Shape Builder tool. Press Alt and click and drag upwards to get rid of that bit. I think we'll get rid of that bit as well. And then I'm just going to squiggle over this to make everything one lovely vector unit. Clean paths. Turn my grid off. Turn snap to grid off. And then bring this in to work with the V. And now the good thing is, now I've cleaned that up, is it's a lot easier to work with. It will work with the font nicer, and if I need to adjust the proportions of it to fit the V better, it's a lot easier, because when you're trying to work with like wiggly paths like this, as you can see, everything's kind of like skew width, and they've kind of got these rounded corners, and like I don't know what's going on there, but it's just very difficult to work with that when fonts are all basically designed to be absolutely perfect. Working with sort of like a free-handed graphic just sometimes doesn't work so well. I mean, there's people that absolutely specialize in that, but I am much more kind of mathematically minded and just generally like to have everything to be perfect, and freehand stuff just isn't really my style. Okay then, so like I was just saying, what's going on here? If I lock the text for a minute, like I was just saying, I want this to be perfect alongside the contour of the V here. So luckily now I've redrawn this, I can just use the scale tool and just bring that in until it looks about right. You see, now I'm thinking that what I've done is actually very unscalable, because this line here is so thin. Maybe we're going to scale this whole thing up until that line is an acceptable thickness. Okay then, so I'm a little bit worried about the thickness of this line, but I think I'm going to leave it, because I think it should work at most sizes. And I mean, we can always create an alternative variant if it was going to be used down at small sizes perhaps. Or what I might do is just apply a white stroke on there and round them edges and just make that like 0.3 or maybe 0.5, and that might just tackle that problem, make it a little bit easier to deal with. I mean, I've just given myself a new problem by doing that, because this is suddenly very thin. So maybe if we go to like 0.35, I think that might be a happy medium. I think that's a little bit better now. I think our font looks a little bit nicer as well. I'm just going to get rid of that. Let's have a little tidy up. I think this new version is definitely easier to read. I think the word graphics here isn't particularly aligned with anything like the bottom of the text. It's not really aligned with anything here. So I feel like if I was creating this logo, I would just put the word graphics below. One part of me wants to use a normal sort of style font for this and do something like that. But I have a feeling, because this is kind of like an illustrator's logo, that this might be custom text. So I think what I'm going to do is just simply change the position of that. If I can actually grab that text. There's definitely something weird going on with the paths of this logo, giving me a bit of trouble as I'm adjusting it. So what I think to do to make a more balanced logo is put the word graphics along here about the same width as the last 3 letters, and just put that beneath there. I think that makes a much more balanced logo. It kind of ties the pen nib closer to the actual like writing here. It's almost as if it's just been written, something like that, or maybe that's a little stretch too far. And with a few little text adjustments, I think we are going to be good to go. Okay then, so a final side-by-side review. What we did was clean up the paths of the pen nib. We adjusted the text so that it's not this weird kind of live trace text with these weird angles and everything. It's a much cleaner font but still got that similar vibe. We have taken the word graphics here because I feel like it's an Illustrator or a lettering artist logo. I didn't want to completely change that just to a standard font, so I've just changed the position of that to make it a little bit more balanced with the logo by putting it beneath. And we have stopped the use of an icon in place of a letter, and instead we've used the letter V there just so it's easier to read, and we've put the icon kind of within it rather than just chucking it over to the left, as I felt like that could work. Let me know what you think down in the comments. So next up we have this logo here for Nurse Tales, and it came with a message as well. It says, I made this quick logo for my girlfriend. She created an Instagram page blogging about her journey to becoming a nurse, and I know a little Photoshop, so I made this. Okay then, so let's have a look at this. So I've got that open in Illustrator already. Sounds like a really cool idea, blogging about becoming a nurse, so wish her luck with that. Just want to quickly save this file. Nurse Tales, yes, lovely. Slam that enter button. Okay then, so this is a really cool concept and it's definitely not lacking creativity. This is nice. It's got the stethoscope as the U of the word nurse, and then that wire or whatever it's called rolls down from that and turns into the A in the word tails. And there's a heart inside there as well, just to make it a little bit more friendly and looks quite cool. Now, if you watch my videos, you probably know my style is quite like simple, and I like to really simplify concepts back to their kind of raw form. So a couple of things that I look at and see in this logo that I kind of think could be improved is the thickness of the letters compared to the thickness of the icons that are kind of making up the letters. There's quite a big gap between them. If you look at the thickness of this stethoscope part here, it's probably about 1/6 of the thickness of like the rest of the font. That just makes it feel a little bit disconnected to me. But I can see exactly why you've done it, because if you fatten this part up to sort of this thickness, I think we're going to have real trouble fitting it all in without it looking like a big sort of like bloody mess. And if we take the font thickness down, I think it's just going to lose some of that sort of like fun and weight. So I think what my plan is going to be is to look at the little part that comes off the bottom of that stethoscope, maybe think about changing where that goes. And it's kind of hard to explain, so I think I'm just going to have a little go at drawing it out. Something like that. Right, let's get let's have a little font battle and see what looks best. Sometimes this is just how you have to do it. You just have to lay them all out and see which one just works. You can't, there's no exact science, just which one looks best. Let's get the old vag rounded. You see, I'm looking at that U in this VAG rounded, and I think that could be the winner here. So let's see how that looks. Yep, no time to waste, let's run with it. So I think my plan is going to be, instead of having the stethoscope cord coming down to make the A, I'm thinking about having it sort of sweeping down and round and becoming like the full stop after Nurse Tales perhaps, and then we can still incorporate the love heart icon inside the little stethoscope, like the cold bit that they put on you. So let's do this. Okay, so I'm going to just copy this, and before I outline it, just because I like to keep everything editable because I'm a little bit crazy, and I'm just going to copy that. So with the white arrow tool, grab them 3 points, copy that, paste in place with F, R, rotate, and just take that to the top. And basically I'm just trying to create that stethoscope shape in a very simple and fun form. If we can make this work, this would be really nice. So I'm just looking at how the spacing is on that side, and I want to match that up this side. And now I need to know the thickness of these lines so that I can match it up perhaps. So I'm going to just use a wild different colour for a second. 1.25, no, 1.5, nope. 1.75, oh close. 1.7, oh, 1.725, yeah, I think that's fine. So I don't know how rigid I want to be with this because it's quite a fun design. I'm a little bit out of my comfort zone because most of the stuff that I actually work on, like in my real job, is corporate sort of stuff, so it's never really kind of like fun logos and stuff. It's always kind of corporate and rigid. And I've got two options. I can either make it quite rigid like that, but I think that is going to look absolutely dead and it's not very fun, and it looks kind of, it just looks dead boring, so I'm just going to get rid of that. No, I'm not. I'm going to use some of that. I don't know if this is very good. Like I say, I'm a little bit out of my comfort zone here. I think I might just be killing all the fun and excitement out of this. So I'm just trying some different text layouts now, because I think I can make this work. I think perhaps we'll use the orange as the secondary colour. Maybe this could work. And if we can make that look like the kind of like the full stop at the end, or maybe it could just go into the centre of the A. Maybe we can make this work. No, I'm not sure if I like that now. I think it's making the text hard to read. I need to take some of my own advice here and keep it separate, slightly more separate. Okay then, so we got this room here, which we can put by or with Emily in. But maybe we'll put that, let's see how that looks. I think perhaps we should have that text running along the contour of this. So I'm going to duplicate that stroke, go type on a path tool, click there, type with Emily, and then basically center the text within this path, but kind of we're going to need to fiddle around with that, which is fine. And then we've got two options to move it up. We can either move the path up, which actually isn't too bad, if we maybe make that text that colour. Yeah, I don't think I mind that. I think this is looking okay. Like I say, I'm quite out of my comfort zone with this style logo, and I still think this maybe looks a little bit corporate, so you might be better off just keeping with yours. But this is the kind of like route that I might take with a logo design like this. Or actually, I have got one more idea. No, it's absolutely dead. Okay then, I'm not entirely sure that I've improved this one, but my aim was just to get the line thickness between the icon that you've used for the U and the A and the text looking a little bit like closer together, so it's more consistent. And I feel like my improvements are easier to read, but it's kind of lost that little sort of creative touch. And looks maybe a little bit too corporate, but let me know what you think in the comments below.